look around at all the darkness that you found. Don't make a sound, you know it's not worth it anymore. You're falling deeper, sinking far.
What is going on, everybody? It is Alex from Everything for iPod, and today I have a comparison between the two newest flagship smartphones on the Android market, the Samsung Galaxy S5 and the HTC One M8. The designs of these two phones are exact opposites. The S5 has a mostly plastic construction with a dimpled removable back to help with grip, and it is shorter, thinner, and lighter, even though it has a slightly larger screen. The M8, on the other hand, feels like a much higher-end smartphone because it is made completely out of aluminum. However, it does have more of a rounded feel. Both of them feel great in the hand, but the M8 feels a little bit more higher-end and higher quality. But the M8 also does feel slippery because of the rounded back, so you're more likely to drop it than the S5. On the bottom of the M8, you'll find a headphone jack as well as a micro USB cable, and on the bottom of the Galaxy S5, there is a micro USB 3 port, which gives you faster transfer speeds than the standard micro USB port. On the top of the M8, you have your power button as well as an IR blaster, and on the top of the S5, you have your headphone jack, and you also have an IR blaster. So both of these phones you can use to control your TV. There's a huge issue with having the power button at the top of the M8. On a phone like the iPhone, the power button just really works up there because it's a smaller phone and your fingers can reach up there. But with a bigger phone like the HTC One M8, you have to readjust your grip just to get to the power button. Also, pretty much every time I went to readjust my grip to hit that button, I ended up hitting the volume rocker on the side at the same time, which just triggers all kinds of weird commands, and it just doesn't work up there. It needs to be placed somewhere else on this big of a phone. Thankfully, HTC did make it a little bit easier to wake up the device because you can just double tap on the screen, but in order to lock it, you do have to reach up and touch that power button. On the other hand, the power button on the Galaxy S5 is in the perfect location, which is on the right-hand side of the phone. If I'm holding the phone in my left hand, I can easily tap the power button with my index finger, and if I'm holding it in my right hand, my thumb perfectly aligns with the power button. Another major design difference between these two phones are the location of the speakers. HTC advertises the boom sound speakers, which are front-facing, and it really just makes sense to have them on the front of the device, since when you're watching a video, that's where you want the audio to project to. The speaker on the S5 is on the back of the phone, and there are two problems with this. One, if you're watching a video, the audio is being projected away from you, and two, if you put your phone down on a table to watch a video or listen to music, all of the audio is going to be muffled. To give you the best representation possible of the audio quality, we're going to listen to a song on the S5, followed by the same song on the M8. So let's take a listen. Having you listen and compare audio sounds through the computer is really not the best idea because how it sounds is dependent upon your headphones as well as my microphone. If it was hard to tell in the video, the speakers on the HTC One M8 are much louder and much more clear than the speakers on the Galaxy S5. The design is probably going to play a pretty important factor in choosing which device you're going to go with, since the specs are pretty much identical between the two devices. Both of these phones run off the same processor, which is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 quad-core processor, although it is worth noting that the Galaxy S5 runs it at 2.5 GHz, while the M8 runs it at a lower 2.3 GHz. This results in pretty even Geekbench scores, but as you can see here, the Galaxy S5 actually scored much higher in Geekbench than the HTC One M8, and that is because this Galaxy S5 is actually the international model, which means it has an octa-core processor rather than the same 801 quad-core processor found in the M8. I will be getting that 801 model, which is sold in North America, very shortly, and I'll be comparing the two models of the Galaxy S5 together but when that actually comes out, you will see very even scores in Geekbench between the M8 and the S5. Also, because they do share the same processor and same amount of RAM, running Antutu benchmark, you're going to get pretty much the same scores on both devices. The Galaxy S5, 38,385, and the M8 got a score of 36,949, which is a very small margin. It's not really that much of a difference. And as far as using this device day to day, you're really not going to notice too much of a difference in performance. Moving on to graphics, both phones actually use the same GPU as well, which is the Qualcomm Adreno 330. I ran the Ice Storm Unlimited graphics test in 3D Mark on both of the phones, and the Galaxy S5 actually scored a lot higher than the HTC One M8. And this is because of its increased clock speed in the processor. It's not actually because of the GPU. Both phones, no matter what the score may be, are going to run any game available in the Play Store with no problem at all at a very good frame rate. The One M8 as well as the Galaxy S5 both have 16 and 32GB models available, and both of these phones can be upgraded in storage up to 128GB via micro SD card. While the back cover is off of the Galaxy S5, there you can see the 2800 mAh battery, which is removable, whereas on the HTC One M8, the battery is only 2600 mAh and is non-removable. You're going to get about the same battery life on both phones, even though the M8 has a smaller battery, and this is because the M8's processor runs at a slower speed, so it requires less power. Moving on to the displays, both phones have a full HD display at a resolution of 1920 by 1080. The Galaxy S5 has a 5.1-inch screen, while the M8 has a 5-inch screen, and because they have the same resolution at different sizes, this means that their pixel density is going to be different. This calculates out to 431 pixels per inch on the Galaxy S5 and 441 pixels per inch on the M8. However, no one is going to be able to see this difference. As far as screen technologies go, both phones are very advanced. The Galaxy S5 has a Super AMOLED display, which produces more contrast and brighter colors, and the M8 has a Super LCD3 screen, which eliminates the air gap between the touchscreen and the actual display, which reduces screen glare. Both of the screens look really good in person. If you have the opportunity to see the phones in person before you actually go ahead and buy one of these phones, I definitely recommend doing so because each screen actually has its own unique look to it. However, the Galaxy S5 seems to be a little bit brighter and more vibrant in my opinion, and I'm just liking it a little bit better. Onto the cameras, and I'll start with the front-facing cameras. The Galaxy S5 has a 2-megapixel front-facing camera, while on paper the M8 certainly looks better with a 5-megapixel front-facing camera. Here you can see a front-facing camera test with the Galaxy S5 on the left and the HTC One M8 on the right. Things get a lot more interesting on the back of these phones. The Galaxy S5 has a 16-megapixel rear-facing camera, which also has the capability to record 4K video. Things get really interesting on the back of the M8. On the back, there are two cameras, which is what HTC calls the duo camera system. The main camera has a 4 ultra-pixel sensor, and the advantage to ultra-pixel is you get larger individual pixels, which reduces the amount of noise. The second camera towards the top of the M8 captures depth information, which allows you to refocus your images after you take them with a feature called U-Focus, and also add a lot of effects to your images that may use depth like 3D effects as well as foreground and background highlighting. There are also two flashes on the rear of the M8 called True Tone Flash, which one has a bright white color and one has more of a yellow color, and they mix together to give a better lighting effect when taking pictures. Through using the cameras, what I have found so far is that the actual software of it, the HTC software seems to be very gimmicky. The features are cool, but they're not quite to the level where I think they really should be released yet. Whereas on the Galaxy S5, you get a much more advanced and easy to use camera application, which gives you more total control over your pictures and videos. I'll let you take a look at some test shots, and in all of these shots, the Galaxy S5 is on the left and the HTC One M8 is on the right. And so far, what I've seen from taking pictures and videos is that the Galaxy S5 seems to be sharper and higher quality images, but the HTC One seems to be a little bit more color accurate, and I've liked the way the pictures have come out better with that phone. At the time of making this video, both of these devices are running the latest version of Android, which is 4.4.2 KitKat. The operating system on these phones, however, look very different because they both have custom UI skins over them. The HTC One M8 has HTC Sense, and the Galaxy S5 has TouchWiz from Samsung. TouchWiz is a very colorful operating system to show off the Super AMOLED screen. Samsung has made this operating system full of colors. It looks really good, there's some cool animations, and they really redo the whole operating system with TouchWiz. Everything looks completely different, they have their own interesting way of tackling the settings menu, and everything just looks very Samsung-like, and really that's up to you whether you like or hate that look. On the other hand, HTC Sense on the M8 feels like stock Android. I really feel like I'm using a higher end version of the Nexus 5. One really cool thing about HTC Sense is it has a lot of swiping gestures. From the lock screen, you can pretty much access anything you want. You can go right to Blink Feed, to Google Now, you can go to right where you left off, you can go to your home screen, you can open up camera or your favorite applications. Really, you can do whatever you want from the lock screen depending on which way you swipe. Of course, there are some noticeable differences. This isn't completely stock Android. There's some different wallpapers. The app drawer looks a little bit different. There's a different menu bar, some new fonts. The lock screen is changed up a bit, and the multitasking menu is completely different. Now, in my opinion, one of the areas where the HTC One M8 really stands out is in the software. I think HTC did a really nice job balancing out what they kept the same about Android and what they decided to change, and I think they made just the right amount of modifications. They didn't go overboard like I think Samsung tries to do. Don't get me wrong, I like TouchWiz, but in HTC Sense, everything that was kept the same from stock Android seems to be the points of TouchWiz I don't really like. On the Galaxy S5, the settings menu to me seems a little bit hard to navigate, whereas on the HTC One M8, they really kept it the same as stock Android, and I'm really a fan of it. They did the same thing with the icons. On the M8, the icons are the same icon pack found on stock Android, and on the Galaxy S5, TouchWiz has its own icons, and I think they're lacking a little bit of design. It is worth pointing out that the Galaxy S5 has a physical home button with 2 capacitive touch buttons on either side of it, and then on the M8, you have all your buttons on screen just like you would find on the Nexus 5. In the software category, really everything comes down to personal preference and which software you like better. Both devices also have some sort of customizable news feed. You have Blink Feed on the HTC One M8 where you can customize what you see from your Twitter feed, from news articles, really anything you want. And you have pretty much the same thing, My Magazine, on the Galaxy S5. You customize what you want to see and it's available on your home screen. To wrap up the comparison between these two phones, I'm going to go over some of the unique features that each phone has. Just as you would expect from Samsung and the Galaxy lineup, the S5 has a ton of unique features. Really, that is the whole selling point of the S5, is how many features are loaded into the phone. On the bottom, you'll see a micro USB 3 port, which gives faster charging and transfer speeds, whereas on the HTC One M8, you're still stuck with the standard micro USB port. The Galaxy S5 also has a fingerprint scanner, similar to the Touch ID sensor on the iPhone 5S, and it's also fully waterproof. I tested this out in another video if you're interested in seeing that, but Samsung says it's only water resistant. I tried it out. It can take a full submersion into water, which is a really cool feature, and it also has a pulse sensor on the back, so you can hold your finger onto the back of the phone, and using the S Health app, you can actually get your pulse. The M8 doesn't have as many cool features. It does have the duo camera and the True Tone flash, like I said earlier, as well as the boom sound speakers, which I also covered earlier. But let's be honest, I think the main selling point and probably the best feature of this phone is the build quality. It just feels like an amazing device to hold, and a lot of people might hate me for saying this, but it feels like an Apple product. I think Apple designs very nice products, and this feels like it's on the same level as an Apple product, which is a very good thing to hear. There's one thing that comes with the HTC One M8 that's not really a part of the phone, but it may still influence your entire decision, and that is HTC Advantage. There's a lot of things that come with it, but the most important is if you drop your shiny new M8 within the first 6 months of owning it, HTC will replace the screen for free the first time it happens. I know this may not sound that important, but trust me, this is a really cool thing for HTC to include, and it really shows that they stand behind the products they're selling. So both of these phones are very good options to go with, and they're both high-end devices. They both have very good specs, they're very powerful, they have good designs. You're going to be happy with either one. If you're looking for a new phone and you've already narrowed it down to these two, this is where you're going to want to pay very close attention. If you're the kind of person that always likes your phone to be a little bit thinner and a little bit lighter than the previous version, and you like it to look better on paper spec-wise, and you want some more features added into it, the Galaxy S5 is certainly the phone you're going to want to go with. But if you want something with a higher build quality, better design, better software, and something that you're not going to get tired of eventually, the M8 is probably going to be the phone that you want to pick up. Now again, I can't make the decision for you. It is really completely up to you. You're going to be the only one that knows exactly what you're looking for in a phone. I know people are going to be curious as to which one I would rather have, and personally that's a really hard decision for me to make. If I had to narrow it down to one, I would probably go with the M8, because what I like to see in a phone is a really good design and good software, and that is exactly what the M8 has. And personally, a lot of the features like the heart rate monitor, the waterproofing, and just random things like that Samsung decided to throw into the Galaxy S5, they're features I think I'd play around with a lot in the beginning, but I don't think I would see myself using months down the road. Again, like I said, it's a very hard decision for me to make. I may end up keeping both of these, I may get rid of both of them, and I may keep just one. I'm not really sure yet. So in the end, I think I like both of them for different reasons, if that makes sense. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this long, in-depth comparison, be sure to hit that like button to show your support, as well as subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future content. Also, I have a lot of content already on my channel for these two phones, so go check that out if you're looking for something else to watch. And also, let me know down in the comments below, which phone would you rather pick up, the HTC One M8 or the Samsung Galaxy S5? I'm curious to know, and if you already bought one, let me know down in the comments as well. Again, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in my next video. See ya.